That's what
There
we
you
want.
go.
Let's let Mr. Richards in.
There you
He
go.
doesn't want to miss out on any of these events. Cool. So, I'm really pleased to have Stu here today. Stu, how long have you been with us now? It's under a year, but it feels like it's
Oh yeah,
getting that way.
I joined in December, so
Yeah,
it's
and
coming up to 6 months.
you've had your you've had your best quarter ever in January to March.
Yeah,
I wish everyone could say that because it's been a bit tough out there. Um,
I know,
I
mate.
I
I know.
saw some stats from Adzuna, and they said it measured March 25 versus March 26, and the number of live jobs that are available because Adzuna looks at it's an aggregator, looks at all of the data on live jobs in the UK.
Mhm.
There's 34% less jobs in March this year than there was in March last year live. So a bit frightening for the market. Depends what market you're in, of course.
Yeah, it's
There's
not
still
really what
some
I
good.
see, Simon. To be fair, I'm
Well,
seeing like
I
completely different to that. So the
that's
stats, you know,
good. I want more positivity rather than my negativity. So
well, there's no
that's
point
pretty
in being
cool.
doom and gloom, is there?
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Well, yeah, just you're a trainer that you
well,
specialize.
careful, coach, careful.
Coach. Well,
Yes,
see, that didn't work well. That all
take
kicked off
offence
well,
at
didn't it?
trainer. Yep,
Yeah, you're a coach,
thanks.
um, and you love to sit with people and see the whites of their eyes and help them at the desk, don't you? But you've also, in order to help and support and scale the business, and also make it more affordable for people, you do some remote stuff as well, don't you?
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
is which you're juggling because you've had a mental year, haven't you, with that? Which is
yeah,
good. Yeah,
yeah,
good
yeah,
news.
yeah. I'm lucky, but yeah, the bread and butter of what I do Monday to Wednesday is on site. So that's
Yeah,
with long-term partners. I'm lucky enough to have had partners for 2 years,
yeah,
partners that have signed up for the rest of this year, things like that. So that's where I get to see sales floors, which I think is something I never want to stop doing.
yeah,
Um, and then yeah, it's been increasingly busy on the virtual side because it gives certainly
yeah.
solo recruiters, it gives them
Yeah,
accessible way to get some support and ideas. So
that's great. That supports our ICP really well across the
yeah,
solos through to micro businesses as well. So
yep.
I'm going to hand it over to you. What are you going to talk about today? What are you going to focus on?
Well, I think when it came to trying to think of, I mean, I hate these things, just to be clear for anybody who's on the call.
You don't like
So
presenting, do
I
you?
absolutely hate them. No, that's why I'm a coach, not a trainer. I'm no good at the stand in front of people and give them theoretical bull crap that doesn't really work on the sales floor. Um, so I try to tee it up more of a Q&A because that makes me feel more comfortable. It means I don't have to prep and perform, if you like. I can give some off the cuff
Okay.
stuff. But really, the core of it, of what I wanted to try and help people with, and with any questions they have, was as you mentioned at the moment, I think that the key, and has always been the way, isn't to have the most activity and to have the most work on. I think the key at the moment is to be efficient. I think it always has been that. And I think usually if someone's finding this industry or something hard, it's usually based on inefficiency because we can spend a lot of time working for free in recruitment, which is partly ridiculous, but sort of partly what we all signed up for in some way.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, and there's certain things that become more challenging from doing that. So there's certain things that I want to try and give people if I can on the session, and maybe the questions will help me with that. But to try and give people a couple of things where they can come off and go, I'm going to go and do that. And there are a couple of people on this call, like there's someone on this call that I've mentored for a few months. He would have heard a couple of these as I put my waffle. He would have heard a couple of these. Um, but they run through everything like my belief system. So, and I do believe there's little tiny things that can make big differences when you're trying to run a small business, or you're sat on a desk trying to desperately get your target in for next month because your gaffer's told you you need to. So,
Mm. Cool. I did say you often talk about hidden revenue um, that's already inside recruitment businesses. Where should leaders look first now? Um, yeah, that is that where you would start with your coaching? Would you start to look at what you've got already that you're not
Yeah,
unpicking? Okay.
yeah. I think it can be a bit of a danger sometimes that when I get on site, and even on LinkedIn, things like that, that the general problem, as you mentioned, with there's less jobs and stuff,
Mm,
that people sometimes think the general problem is BD.
mm.
But how much do we hear that? BD is the problem, or I
Oh,
need to
a
do
lot,
more
a
BD, or
lot. Yeah.
and there's recruitment gurus all over LinkedIn telling people who are hardworking how to do BD when they don't do it themselves, and that winds me up. So
Mm,
um, I actually think a lot of the time people are working really hard, 50-hour weeks, um, and there's stuff there that can turn into revenue.
mm,
It's just that because you're in it, you don't always see it. I was saying that
mm.
to you before I call. I'm in my business and I need to spend
Yeah.
some time on it. It's easy for me to say when I need to take my own advice, um, but absolutely, I walk onto a sales floor, I start working with people, and they think, the key is I've got to have more jobs.
Mm,
The key is I need to do more BD. And what I really start doing when I work with someone is start picking apart what BD means,
yeah.
um, because I actually think the phrase BD is almost damaging now. I sometimes ask consultants what BD is to them, and they say ringing people, trying to win jobs. And I'm really not a big fan of that.
Mm,
Um, so I start moving it to more like, what are you doing to develop your business? What are you doing to develop your desk? And start trying to pull apart what they've already got in place. Because usually I'll meet people who have something on the pipeline. Um,
mm,
but it might well be that there's revenue on their pipeline that they haven't noticed. So, do you know what, as well? I also meet people who don't have a pipeline because they don't look at it or track it. So I meet plenty of recruiters that actually don't have a physical pipeline sat in front of them that helps them make choices.
mm,
So anybody I coach, certainly next to them, and anybody I onboard, will be roughly in month 2 of a first onboarding. They will be made aware that they've got to run a pipeline.
mm,
Um, that pipeline should have things on it that start present you with choices. I mean, I have, as you would imagine, I have a million documents that support all the stuff that I talk about, but I believe a pipeline should have. Um, I think you should be scoring every job. Lots of consultants think that's boring, but I don't know why you would be in a sales job and then not fully qualify what you put on your own pipeline. So
mm.
I think that's really important. I can give a few examples of that to try and help with what scoring looks like as well. Um, but I also think you can have a pipeline. You don't physically have one. If you do physically have one, there can be lots of different jobs on it at lots of different businesses in lots of different places. And I actually think that's a weak pipeline, even though it might have 10 jobs on it. So I think there's ways to make a pipeline stronger, um, and therefore make it simpler and easier for that pipeline to start like working for you. Because one thing I see when I'm on site a lot is people working for their businesses, not it working back. Like it's all, I'll just put loads of stuff in and pray something comes off. And I think there's more we can do about trying to help, like get our businesses working for us on our terms a little bit more. That's all.
Uh, when you talk about the pipeline, um,
Mhm.
do you have some stats and thoughts about conversion rates, or what's acceptable in terms of working, having a pipe? You mentioned, let's round some numbers. If I've got
Yeah,
10 jobs
yeah,
and I haven't scored them,
yeah.
um, let what should I do first? You know.
Well, if you've got 10 jobs in your pipeline and you haven't scored them, you might not be completely clear on engagement.
Yeah,
So I prioritize engagement over fee, and
yeah,
I prioritize engagement over job.
yeah.
So real world example. So you've got 10 jobs, 10 jobs on your pipeline.
Mm,
My question around that would be, have you, and people talk about relationships, don't they? Don't do selling anymore, like build relationships, which
mm,
sounds lovely, and I do that too. But I think we need to quantify a relationship. Otherwise, what can happen if you don't draw boundaries in a relationship is that you get mugged off by the other party.
mm,
So, and that happens in all our relationships throughout our life. So, I believe that if something's on your pipeline, that job, for instance, is on your pipeline, then I believe you should have outlined the boundary with that client about how you're going to work and how the relationship should work. I don't think you need exclusive work and retained work to make revenue. I do believe you can make money as a contingent recruiter.
Mm,
It's not ideal, but I believe you can. But I believe that you holding a client to some boundaries of a relationship and managing that relationship will usually mean you'll beat other recruiters.
mm,
So, as a real world example, I will regularly stand in front of recruiters and we talk about their pipeline, and I'll say, what makes a job good? And they will say things like exclusivity, but you can't always get that. You know, I think we titled this, without more leads. Well, I would argue if you're chasing leads, then you're usually going to be late on the job, which
mm,
means you can't always have exclusivity and have it retained. It's not that simple.
mm,
Um, so then I'd be like, okay, so let's understand how you've drawn boundaries for your current relationship with that client. Um, have you made it clear that the client needs to give you feedback on first interviews and CVs within 24 hours? Have you made that clear? Have you even told the client that why are they looking at your CVs to interview them? Because it's our job. So why is that client paying us a fee to then pre-screen our CVs after I've pre-screened the CV and I do it 50 hours a week? I
mm,
almost see it as a bit rude that they
mm,
pre-screen my CVs when I do it for a living.
mm,
Have you agreed that the client must give you a half an hour call to make sure you can take the job on properly from the hiring manager? And if you're not dealing with the hiring manager, I do believe you probably shouldn't be working that job at all and it shouldn't be on your pipeline.
mm,
So I think there's many others, but I think drawing and understanding boundaries with that client starts helping you. I think I've done this with people, real world, and they've come off a call and started scoring their pipeline. And they've actually
mm,
picked up the phone to clients and started drawing some boundaries.
mm. No,
And
I
that
get that.
helps. Like it's
I,
speed, it's
yeah.
momentum. And I think that really
Mm,
helps if you can have a high communication relationship. It usually means you've got more chance of placing the job. I think communication fills jobs, personally. I think it's huge.
mm. You raised a point there, something
Hmm.
we did principal people, and then we changed it when we were doing the health and safety jobs, was and we learned that we learned a bit of that from Jeremy because he slapped our face and said, "What are you doing this for? You're a health and safety recruiter. The client health and safety people make up less than 1% of the working population. So whoever's hiring from that business doesn't really understand the skills, experience, and type of individual
Yeah.
that's needed." Um, we used to do a, a long list and send the CVs into the client and see
And let them
which
pre-screen them.
which one they wanted to interview, and
Yeah.
um, and in the end, when we got slapped by Jeremy, he said we stopped doing that. We'd say to the client, "We're going to put our best three candidates where you're going
Yeah.
to where the interview slots for when can you do interview slots between the next 7 and 10 days." And we'll book our best
Yeah.
three candidates in. And when they said, "Well, I want to see the CVs first," then we said, "No, we're specialists in this.
And there you go.
Been doing this for 20 years. We know what good as long as you've done the proper qualification of the skill
Yeah.
set and the person spec, we'll get you the best three." And it
And it's
just
easy to say though, isn't it? But I think it comes down to confidence as well, Simon. A lot of people that I work
well,
with,
in
it's
the
whether
end,
they've got the confidence.
it was half of our consultants were scared stiff of saying that, and
Yeah. Yeah.
the other half went, "Oh my God, we're going to take a week off the fill rate or the
Yeah.
fill time. It's going
Yeah.
to save so much time, and also you raise your profile slightly in
It's
terms of
credibility.
and
Yeah.
expertise with the candidate. So it was
Absolutely.
with the client rather. So it was, and the
I
candidate,
challenge consultants to get an interview without a CV. That's my challenge for a consultant that I coach. I'm like,
yeah,
so I'm on the sales floor. Your challenge is to get that interview without sending a CV,
mm,
because that's kind of our job if we're a consultancy. Like you wouldn't go into an accountant's, would you, and say, I need an accountant service. Could you send me all the numbers and I'll decide if I like them? You
yeah,
you go, actually, no, I like you. Can you do a good job? Cool. Here's some proof I can do a good job. Here's how
yeah,
it works. Okay,
yeah,
cool. I'll pay you monthly. You just look after my accounts. So
yeah,
the more we can start thinking as consultants and less recruiters, I
yeah,
think it becomes a lot easier to control the client, and also the ability to walk away, which I know isn't easy,
yeah.
but the ability to walk away. And then one of the first things I do when I support somebody, even before they're plowing stuff onto their pipeline, is making it very clear what they do and what they don't do.
Mm,
because if you've got a pipeline full of stuff that you don't do, you're not filling in. That's my view on it. So be really good at something, because it makes it a lot easier to fill those jobs. You don't need lots of jobs, and in a market where the jobs are becoming less, as you mentioned, you've got to be more efficient, which means ideally, if you're doing a really good job within a finite part of the market, that you need less jobs for you to make the money that you need. But sometimes we get so carried away trying to address so much of a market, calling ourselves a specialist. And I'm sorry, like you probably don't need all that market. Most perm recruiters that I meet, as an example, for them to be happy, need to place, depending on their average fee, anywhere between probably 12 to 25 people a year. You don't need the whole of the UK, a massive market, to do that in.
No.
But we can get lost in that market and then become inefficient.
I've got a couple more questions.
Go on, mate. Sorry.
What habits quietly damage billings and long-term growth? And I might want to say what good habits. They're bad habits, actually. But is there anything that you find that is either really good as a great habit or really bad as a poor habit that recruiters get stuck into? So if we can cover both of those.
Bad habits. Bad habits when it comes to long-term growth is distraction. So I believe it is a skill you can develop, but how you organize yourself in the day, what that looks like, I think that can be really hard sometimes if you work on your own, and what you think your day should look like and how you organize your time. And I think somebody can like the idea of doing some BD that morning, and then an email goes off and it's game over. So I see that at desk where there's absolutely no coincidence in the fact that I sit next to somebody for 3 hours and they speak to more hiring managers and have a better session than they've ever had. And it's not because I'm magical or anything. It's because I hold them to task.
Yeah.
And I keep them focused. So that's one key thing, is how you focus and how you manage your time for focus, and be clear on what you can't cope with. Another thing is distraction when it comes to pipelines. So a client calls you up who you've been working with for a while, says, we've got a job in the Outer Hebrides in a completely different specialism than you do, but it's a 15 grand fee, and you take it because it's a 15 grand fee. But I would argue plenty of people would argue that's a good decision to take it, by the way. But I would argue that is going to take a lot of time away from your core business. And then you are going to find that could be the only job on your pipeline in 3 weeks. And that's where long-term it starts hurting you, is the consistency behind that and the ability to stay consistent and stay the course. A lot of what I do when it comes to virtual mentoring is actually around discipline and accountability. A lot holding somebody to what they said they would do, because actually a lot of people that I meet know what they should do. They just fall into bad habits and sometimes just need a bit of checking. Good habits when it comes to long term: be clear about what you don't do. Be really powerful and have a lot of pride over your pipeline. Like, I really believe that. I really believe that when it comes to how they go to market, sometimes that we can sometimes get excited and pull a job because we think we need to pull a job, and actually not necessarily qualify what that job looks like, and qualify how they do recruitment and how they've done it in the past and how they view recruiters. We just quickly pull a job and whack out the pipeline because we need something to work, because we think that's recruitment. So there's the good habits come down to the consistency and the discipline of what it looks like. And I think one thing recruiters find really tough is, well, if I want to go and find, and I'm conscious BD will on lots of people's mind when it comes to building pipeline. What does BD look like? I need to add stuff to my pipeline. It's all good, well, in saying that, Stu, but I've got to get in the position to even be able to qualify a job. I think everybody needs types of, like, ways to go to market, a menu of ways to go to market. So they can almost get excited about going to market again. Like a salesperson would.
I get that. So give some examples of ways to market some of your clients are really finding fruition from. That would be good.
So I can give real world examples. So I'm
Mm.
onboarding a 4-person academy. For the first 4 weeks of that academy, they learned how to speak to people.
Mm.
For the record, they learned how to ring people without a job. I passionately believe that's recruitment, not ringing people with jobs. Plenty of people on LinkedIn shout at me about that, but I believe I taught those people to ring anybody without a job and have a great conversation with them around being a candidate.
Mm.
It's now this last week was the end of week 8. They are full 360 consultants. They've been trained that way, and they are on cold desks, so it's new markets for them.
Mm. Mm.
And they booked 6 meetings across them last week to take on jobs.
Mm. Cool.
So the way they did that was speaking to lots of talent, not wasting talent's time, really being
No.
really focused in their market. We really focused them down in their market.
Mm.
And speaking to talent every single morning and having great conversations with talent all morning, not about jobs.
Mm.
Adding value, because I think that's BD. I think if you're speaking to talent in your market, that's developing your market. I think that's more important than just ringing clients. And then actually some of the work that they did to get those clients is something I called senior candidate calls, which is actually a strategy. There's a bit more to it, but in short, it's ringing a senior person and starting to build a bit of a relationship with them and helping them understand about how you work and how you might help them one day. And asking some really good commercial questions to start uncovering what's happening at their business and seeing if you can find movement. So pretty much everything I coach people on is hearing and seeing movement. And that's usually where recruitment lies. So that a lot of what they've done is that, and then taking candidates to market. I've heard a lot of things and seen a lot of things that there's plenty of people saying that speccing's dead and it doesn't work. That's not true.
Good.
Categorically not true. I've seen an experienced consultant start specking when he's not done it for a long time, when he had a bad relationship with it, and he's placed 2 people into lapsed clients in the last month. So it works. You just need to be really good at it. You need to have a plan. You need to be focused, and you need to keep doing it. And it needs to not be on email. Like phone first. So absolutely BD is phone first, and again that's something that some people find challenging, but it's phone first. We can't expect to be pulling jobs sending emails, and LinkedIn messages.
Noise.
Yeah, I think when I get on site a lot, people have spent tons of money on Recruiter. A lot of people know my thoughts on that. I walk onto sales floors and say, cancel all your recruiters. I'll teach you how to do it without Recruiter. Like without a full recruiter license. Instead, spend some money on something that will give you numbers. That's what I encourage. Spend it on some tech that will give you numbers.
And any tips about that type of tech that some of your clients have loved, or is it different markets?
So I've got clients that use Lusher or Lucia. I've got a client that use Atlas as their CRM. And that actually has tech built in that syncs with LinkedIn that will show you any telephone numbers and email addresses they can find. I think one underrated thing is every single time somebody connects to you on LinkedIn, check their contact info. I've found out plenty of recruiters that have missed that and their mobile numbers on there.
Yeah, of course.
But for the record, I've also sat next to senior recruiters who have then seen that telephone number and chose not to ring it and sent them a message instead.
It's lazy. It's lazy.
Honestly, it's being a bit scared. I don't class it as laziness because I don't think anybody rocks up to work to be lazy. Personally, I have to be quite positive about those things. So I don't think anybody gets into recruitment going, oh, I hope I'm crap at this. Like, 'cause it's really hard. I think they look at that number and they go, what am I going to call them about? I don't have a job for them, or I really want to work with that business, but what am I going to say? And that's really hard. Like that is hard. So I have to give them a belief system and a plan of what to say to get that person to believe they can add value to them.
That's a really good point. So you've found someone that the recruiter's found someone really interesting who wants to speak to, and
Yeah.
he gets scared about
Yeah.
not necessarily making the call, but what to say.
What to say? Yeah.
So what sort of guidance would you give that individual to go, right, this is a plan to engage this individual? What would be in that plan?
So the overarching plan, there's a fair bit to it, but the overarching plan is that whether they're a candidate or a potential hiring manager, they're a human being,
Mm,
right? And human beings are interested in a few things, right? Usually we're really conscious of our own time. So we get a bit snooty if we think someone's going to waste it, which I think is
mm,
fair.
mm,
We usually want to make a couple of quid and we usually want to heighten our status. Those are the few things we really care about.
mm,
Um, I think that the general view of a recruiter from the general public, that human being, a lot of the time is that they think recruiters fill jobs. Fair?
mm,
Yeah, like
mm,
recruiters fill jobs. Yeah, or they find people jobs. And I teach people to be able to ring somebody and not use the word recruitment,
mm,
not use the word job, and not use the word opportunity. Anybody who's onboarded by me is not allowed to use those words when they ring somebody. And even if they have a job and an opportunity, they're not allowed to use those words when they first ring somebody. The challenge they then have is I've got to ring somebody and add value to them and help them understand that I'm not going to waste their time
mm,
without saying the word job,
mm.
which is actually quite hard for a lot of recruiters because sometimes it's all they've done.
Yeah.
So, um, so the gauntlet I throw down is like, well, what value do we add? Like, without a job, what value do we add? And I genuinely get experienced recruiters that can't answer that question.
Mm,
Like, but we add tons. Like we create movement. We're like the lifeblood of industries. Like be
yeah.
proud of what you do. Like don't think it's a dirty job where you find people jobs. Like be proud of what you do. Ring somebody and tell them what you do. Ring somebody and try and find out their problems. Like give a crap and ring them as a human and say, I know there's all these problems in this industry and I want to see what your problems are. I want to understand what your problems are.
Mm,
My job is to solve problems. That's why recruitment exists, by the way. It's not to fill
mm,
jobs. Everybody has a problem, don't they? Oh, I need to grow my team. Oh, I've had somebody leave. Problems, whatever that looks like. Or, oh, I, I love my job and everything, but I bet there's a nicer one out there. Or I'd love to have more annual leave, or I'd love to be paid a bit more, or I think I'd like to have, I think I can add more. I want to be developed. Everyone's got a problem. Don't try and solve that problem with a job. Like, try and find out the problem first, try and understand somebody, and then you might be able to help them properly. And I just
mm,
think like I just think if we go to market as a consultant who genuinely, it's really cringy, but like the career consultant, like if we go to market as somebody who thinks that way, it becomes, in my opinion, and it must become easier because I've got four young people who have never done recruitment before or sales, who are ringing people every single day without jobs and having genuinely good, great conversations with them. So it is doable. So
yeah.
imagine if you've got the experience, what you can do.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, thank you for that. Um,
It's okay. I get a bit
right.
ranty, sorry.
I'm going to know that ranting's good. Um, I'm just thinking whether this is relevant. Where do most recruiters lose momentum or revenue between their first conversation and placement? You know, um, I think in the current market, I hear a lot of messaging about jobs falling out, um,
Yeah,
or
counter offers are
time,
rife at the moment as well.
yeah, time to hire is a long time because the companies hasn't got a great structure for
Mm.
hiring. and
Yeah,
and of course, if they want to see every CV before they book an
oh,
interview,
yeah,
that can
yeah,
stretch things out. And then
yeah,
after they've seen the CV, then you've got, if you haven't booked interview slots, then that's got to be done. So everything, and then the candidates get, God, what's happening here? They get bored
yeah,
and they
yeah.
want
Of
to go
course, it's
elsewhere.
dead.
So I just, is there anything? Is there anything? Any tips and guidance on momentum, that you can, so you're in control, so consultants can be in control when they have a job in their pipeline, and
Fair.
they're making something of it.
So it's a belief from what I see, but I believe every recruitment consultant should be able to tell the client the perfect process.
Yeah.
But again, like you don't go to an accountant and they just go, well, we'll do your accounts. They tell you how it's going to work. You don't go to a solicitor and they go, well, we'll just do some soliciting. Like they tell you how it works. Yeah. So, but we'll ring people and go, so I'll do some recruitment. I'll send some CVs. Woo, take care. Like, what?
Yeah.
So I believe that as a recruiter, whatever your industry is, and I do this with some people, but I build what I call like a signposted process of like our recommended process. So my old boss from many years ago used to call it the IKEA effect, which is built around, you know, when you walk into IKEA, you don't really get lots of choices. You kind of have to walk past those arrows and kind of like, and they do that. So you buy stuff, obviously, and you do. Right? But you don't get lots of choice as you walk around. Like they sort of tell you where to go. Yeah. So I think we should be able to educate a hiring manager on how we, based on our experience, should recommend a process works, working back from start date.
Yeah, so, that's cool.
So instead of thinking CVs, because we're so busy at the start of it,
at the front end, yeah,
we're so excited because it's a job. So, we've got a job, quick, I've got to send 4 CVs that are crap. Right. So instead of that, it's okay. When do you want them to start? Because by the way, that answer is usually wrong from most hiring managers.
Yeah.
Like how many times do they go, well, I want somebody to start as soon as, whatever. So when do you actually want them to start? Well, I want them to start in, it's the middle of May now. I want them to start in July. Oof. You know, like when a plumber comes in your house and looks at a job and goes, right, don't be afraid to do that because they don't know. So, and you don't know what the plumber's going to do. So you have to just take it. So, you take a sharp in, take a breath, and then say, okay, well, with notice period, we need to get offer sorted by the 1st of June. Hiring manager will be like, oh yeah. Oh shit, I forgot about that. Hope you don't mind swearing, by the way. But oh shit, I forgot about that. Right, okay, so we've got 2 weeks. So my recommended process over the next 2 weeks to get this done would be working back from start date. We need offer by this date. Write it down, send it to the hiring manager after. Right, so we need offer date by here. Cool. Okay, so we need it closed by then. Well, to get it closed, we're going to have final interviews this week, this date. Okay. Well, first interviews then, if we're doing 2 stages, are we sure we want to do 2 stages? Are you sure? Have you thought about 3? No, you're definitely sure about 2. Okay, what we're going to do in those stages? Hence taking the job on. Right. First interview's got to be then. Oh, wow. Okay. I've got 3 days to get people in front of you for first interview. That's not going to be doable. Like, hopefully it would be doable if you're a specialist, a true specialist. But anyway, so, oh crap. Right, okay, we need to think about the timeline. Actually, there's no point in you seeing CVs. Why don't you give me blind slots for your date? Blind slots is where they don't use CVs. You just attach a CV to the invitation that you put in their diary. And we'll get it going. Let's get some first interviews booked in this date, because if we don't, it's August, mate, not July. But we very rarely work back from start date. Or what I see on site. I'm sure there's some people that are, by the way. But from what I see on site, we very rarely work back from start date and then recommend a process to create urgency and to help them understand about all the problems we're going to have. Because the amount of times I walk on site and I go, how's the desk? What are you doing? And they go, oh, I've got 3 CVs out. Oh, okay, cool. Which I hate, by the way. But I've got 3 CVs out. I'm like, oh, okay. But they haven't come back to me yet because they're on holiday. Well, you didn't know they're on holiday.
Yeah.
You took the job on, a project. So I don't call jobs, they're projects. You took a project on and you didn't map if someone's going to go on leave during that project. What a terrible waste of time. You've lost a week. And why have you sent the CVs if they're on holiday? So you know, it's really common that we do that, but we very rarely look at us as a project. So the short answer to your question, sorry, paraphrase, really, really clear, is see it as a project, not a job. Take on projects and add projects to your pipeline. Manage the project.
When you use the word project, use the word project and not job, it by default makes you think about process in the project.
Well, we are though, aren't we? We're project managers, aren't we?
Exactly. Right. Yeah, definitely.
Actually, it's boring, but we're project managers. I know we're salespeople, and that's why it's hard. But we manage the project. We've got to manage multiple stakeholders during a project. Candidates, clients. So we're a project manager, really, but we very rarely look at it that way.
Yeah.
I almost never meet a recruitment business that, until I build one, has like an operating procedure of how they recommend a job should be worked and what should be done.
Mm.
The minute we do that, it gives them all some clarification to be able to be held accountable to it. And I think that's really cool. I love the idea of a hiring manager going on a call with a recruiter, having a half an hour call, then getting an email, as you should with AI now, with an overview of the role, right? All the things they've committed to, by the way,
Yeah. Yeah.
all the things they've committed to, that
Got the note
engagement,
taker on.
that
Yeah.
relationship, yeah, all the relationship stuff they've committed to, and a mapped process.
Mm.
Why can't we do that?
Mm.
Either
I
we
love
can't be
that.
asked or we're scared to. That's
Yeah.
all. So,
Yeah.
which is either one's fair. But sometimes that's where I get to help people because I can give them the confidence to try it. So
Okay. Um, what should leaders be measuring? They might be measuring their own processes as well. But what should business owners be measuring if they want pipeline health, not vanity metrics?
I
So,
think, yeah, yeah, I see that quite a lot. So I've just started working with a business. Hopefully they won't mind me saying, but I've been working with them since December. Um, there was a danger that when I walked into the business, that if people looked busy, it was okay. They thought it was okay. They thought their pipeline was building because they were on the phone. Now I remember I am a fan of being on the phone. Um, but actually they didn't know their fill rate. They didn't know their average fee. They didn't know their first interview to placement. They didn't know their CV to placement ratio. And I think the least we should know is our ratios and our efficiencies.
mm,
So a big shift when I start working with a business and coaching people is that um, I want them to understand their ratios, not just put random numbers on the board. And I think it's really common that on a sales floor, people say, well, you've got to get 5 first interviews this week. For instance, it's always
mm,
5 or 5 CVs. It's always 5. It's funny that. Um, and if you get 5 of these, you can go home at 3 o'clock on Friday. But if I'm a recruiter sat next to them who gets 4 every week, I don't go home, but I'm more consistent than the person next to me.
mm,
Like so, I think we draw out the wrong behaviours then. Um, the flip side of that. So as a leader, I think help understand your ratios and bespoke KPIs to each individual because I think in recruitment it's easy to have a bad relationship with KPIs.
mm,
It's easy to see, oh, I'm being micromanaged. Um, and you feel like you're nagging about numbers as a leader. And it shouldn't be that. Your people should know their numbers and how they operate in their business and come and tell you.
mm.
Um, and driving that accountability on the individual to understand their business is super important. Um, the flip side of that is people that are sat at home or working for themselves who don't look at any KPIs at all.
Mm.
Um, and it's almost impossible in my opinion to operate that way.
Mm.
Partly because you might actually be really efficient and you're not telling any of your clients. So I don't know why we're not using that. But also because it's really hard to know what's going wrong. You know, one of the first things I do if I start supporting a solo recruiter is I'm like, get on your CRM. I need to know your numbers
Mm.
because I don't know how many reps you need and you don't either. So you're just guessing. And then you're just guessing what you're putting on your pipeline whilst guessing how many of them you need, whilst guessing whether a deal comes off. That's such a hard way to run a business.
Mm.
I much prefer that I know what a good week looks like and I know what a good month looks like away from revenue.
Without that knowledge, people get stressed easily. If they
Oh,
have
easily.
if they have the data, it can give them some comfort because they
Yeah.
know what the outcomes might be, or if the data's telling them they need more, they can
Mm.
focus, can't
You
they?
can make a choice. Yeah, you
Yeah,
make a choice then. Oh, I
you,
choose to do more.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
I meet plenty of people that want balance, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that with time and balance. And if I can give them time, then they can go and do other things, or they can choose to bill more.
yeah.
Big billers are built around efficiency. Some of them just don't know it,
Mm. The
whilst also having high levels of activity.
we've got a few solos and partners on today, but I am going to
Mhm.
ask the question: because a lot of people will watch this after the event. How can managers create accountability around business development, that terrible phrase, without killing
It is a terrible
motivation?
phrase.
Without killing motivation, because you sort of referred to it a little bit earlier. You know, these are the numbers I need, but you started to sort of say this is the numbers that the recruiter needs. It's for his or
Yes.
her benefit, not
Yeah.
not mine. So it's getting them to own it, is it?
It's getting them to understand it. So a
Okay.
phrase I use on site is lifting people's recruitment IQ.
Yeah.
So the ability of helping somebody understand how recruitment works and what you put in to get out, and the averages. Like sometimes somebody telling me once they found out their numbers that they're running at 5 interviews to a placement, and I reassure them how that looks versus other people in the market in other sectors, that can help.
Mm,
Um, but I absolutely believe that everyone's KPIs should be bespoke because every recruiter recruits slightly differently in every single set. It's why I don't believe standing up in front of people and giving them a PowerPoint for 3 hours teaches them anything. Like,
mm,
because everyone's slightly different. Everyone's stronger at different parts of the process. Um, Unless you see those numbers, you also can't identify where the learning's needed, where the leak is.
mm,
Um, so I do believe that everybody has a certain way of working, and there isn't just some fixed numbers that everybody needs. And from a leadership point of view, it's really easy to just shout out some numbers.
cool.
You
Cool.
know, make these many calls.
Yeah.
Why? And then the recruiter thinks their job is to make calls. Well, actually, no. Their job is to speak to people in the market and gain information.
Mm,
That's actually their job, but they don't realize that. So they just make some calls and go home. And then we moan that they don't take accountability.
um, what what separates the recruiters and businesses that are going to thrive this year? Do you think this is a tough space now? You know
Yeah,
that you're
it
you
has been easier.
you
Yeah,
yeah, you've it's been easier. You
it has
told me
been
to
easier.
focus. You told me to be more optimistic, and
Yeah,
actually,
yeah,
you've seen some more positivity. But
yeah, yeah.
it, I want to. What do you think recruiters and businesses are doing that, and I mean thrive by grow? I'm talking about growing. Yeah, rather than just standing still.
Um, that, so they're clear on what they don't do and they're very focused on their markets. So
Mm,
partners that I'm working with that are making good money are making money in a finite part of the market over and over and over and over again because it becomes easier to keep the momentum going.
mm,
They're not, they're trying to get away from, and that's sometimes part of the journey, but they're trying to get away from, I work job, I stop work job, I find other job.
mm.
And they're trying to move away from that. Every
Yeah.
single time you work a job, there should be long-term business development opportunities to find more work in working that job. And if you can spend a lot of time in that market, it becomes easier to get momentum again. So
Mm,
when I'm on site and people are making money, it's usually because they truly do have a huge grip on that as well. Another thing they also have is passion. Like I see a big difference of people that are struggling to build versus people that build, and a lot of it is because they genuinely believe in what they do.
mm,
Like they believe in the value and they want to do a good job. Um, the businesses when I'm on site and they've switched to started making money is that they're becoming more efficient
okay.
and they understand and look at those efficiencies. Actually, in multiple markets and partners that I've supported for a while, their average fees are going up because salaries are going up.
Yeah.
So why is that a
Yeah.
negative?
Mm,
It might mean you need less placements now. So maybe take your time a bit more and do it a bit better because you might have time to do that. It might not be that you need more jobs anymore. Um, I also think sometimes they have to understand from a market point of view, and we talk about jobs a lot. Do they need a job? If it's a desperately candidate short market, why are we trying to win jobs?
mm,
I sit next to people and say, in some markets, I would rather have an exclusive candidate rather than an exclusive job
mm.
because I can make more happen. And you can win more work off that should you want to. Um, so I think they're really clear on the type of client they go for. They're clear on, like, there's a lot of it basically is clarity. And what's my ICP? What clients don't I want? That client works that way. I don't want to chase that one. These are the clients I'm going to chase. Understanding these are the ones that have buying signals. These are the ones that use recruiters. These are the ones that are willing to pay a fee. So how do I disrupt that relationship with that recruiter? And I'm going to go after that as opposed to try and win a massive whale who have got tons of red tape and a 50-person TA team and a portal, heaven forbid. So going at that mid-market, going at the level where a lot of people, when I break down their markets now, are focusing on company size as well, because you're able to get traction quicker and you're able to speak to a human. So, and actually there's a fair bit of recruitment happening at that level. So yeah, like being clear on the type of clients you're going to attack. Consultants that are making money at the moment can show me their client list. They can show me their prospect list. It's not thousands, because you're not going to be able to get heard, and it's just noise. Like it's 200, and they realize they maybe only need 3 or 4 of those.
Yeah.
So it becomes more achievable.
But I guess if they talk to people in that 200, they've got amazing knowledge of that market, because it's a narrow market, and B, they understand the talent pools in that market. So they've got a lot of knowledge that is specifically pertained to them. Because if you've spoken to 200 companies and you've spoken to multiple people within those businesses, you've got a real feel for that sector, or that and the geography and the talent pools and what's happening.
You're supposed to be an expert.
Which of those businesses are rising? Which of those businesses are sliding? That knowledge that's the stuff that consultancy is written around, not
absolutely. So what I call spread the problem. So you speak to a company, you find out a problem. Well, then ring another 15 people at that level, at multiple competitors, and tell them the problem and see how they're dealing with it.
Yeah.
Don't ring them about recruitment. Oh, for God's sake, don't say the word recruitment. So the ability of doing that, whilst also, and the people that are making money now are looking after their process. This is how we work. This is how it's going to feel to work with us. We're not about sending lots of CVs. We're not about you pre-screening. We're supposed to do a job for you. We are about having a clear timeline about how this is going to work, and it's going to be high communication. We are talking about counter offer on the first call with every single candidate. Every single candidate. What are you going to do when they counter offer you? Every single candidate on the first call. Right. So just trying to really, really manage the process and do a good job, a really good consultancy job, rather than sitting on job boards and banging CVs out.
I got a final question for you, and I bet there's a couple more.
Sorry, it's been ages.
If everyone watching implemented one thing immediately after today, what should it be? And it might not be one thing. So you choose.
Shit. If there were implement one thing, I would go over your pipeline and start scoring it. I'd look at your pipeline, because most people that are sitting here today will have a pipeline. And I would look at every single job on your pipeline, sit there and come up with a scoring plan about what you see as a good client. And a good job, by the way. Don't forget good job. Because you can have a lovely client, but they pay crap and they can't find anybody.
Good project. Sorry, good project.
Good project. Yes, good project. So have a look at your pipeline, go through your projects and look at it and think, really simple scoring system. Like, I'll tell you a real world scoring system. I've got one in front of me. So a real world scoring system, which, by the way, should be on your job order form if you don't have one already. Don't think you're always above having a job order form. I believe everybody should have one. So have you got hiring manager contact? If you haven't got hiring manager contact, stop working the job. In my opinion. Easy for me to say, though. Easy for me to say. Hiring manager contact. Did I take a full job spec, or did I get emailed the job? Emailing a job to you does not count as taking a job spec.
No.
Filling a bit of paper is not the one, right? And I watch people try and do it. Have I mapped out the process? No. I should probably ring that hiring manager and map out the process.
Starting with the end in mind.
Yeah, starting from when you want them to start.
Yeah.
Do I know if it's exclusive? This is crazy, and people have admitted it to me. They've told me about a new job, and I've said, "Is it exclusive?" And they've gone, "I don't know. I forgot to ask." Like, so what other recruiters are they working with? How many are they working with? What have they done? Has that recruiter, who's on interview? Just honestly, that's a lot of my job is I basically I meet people, sit down, and I destroy their pipelines. But isn't it better to know the reality?
Mm.
So I would encourage, if anybody could do something after this, hopefully they've got a pipeline, bless them. If not, then there's a different thing. But if you've got stuff on your pipeline right now, 4 jobs, 5 jobs, 10 jobs, whatever, pull them apart, score every single one. Like define what is a good job, and then pull them apart and be horrible about your own pipeline.
You can go back and requalify some of the things you've forgotten to do, can't you?
Ring the hiring manager.
Yeah,
it's fine. It's allowed. That's an excuse to ring them. Don't email them. But it's an excuse to ring them and go, oh, I just want to run through the, like, what's the harm in that? It's about being brave enough and confident enough to do it, though, which is part of the challenge. And cool. Sometimes when I'm sat next to people, I do have to tell them to make a call that they don't want to make. So
that's cool. I'm going to switch my view to gallery again now. Is there any questions from the group that what you want to argue with Stu about some of these processes?
I like an argument.
Or challenge him on a couple of other some challenges you faced that he might have a solution for, or he's seen other people overcome. You know, this is a unique opportunity to bounce some stuff off him and just say, I've got this issue, I've had this repeat problem.
I knew Harry'd have a question.
Harry's got his hand up. Good stuff.
I know Harry, and he's a good recruiter, so this is going to be a problem.
Hello, Stu. Can I have a crack at a question then, everyone?
Go for it, Harry.
First off, thanks for that, Stu. Me and Max and my team have just been listening along to that and nodding our heads and sort of tutting a lot of the time because it's good to hear those sort of things. You know, or you may not know, but our business now recruits globally in sport, and kind of like going back from being that inch wide, mile deep sort of scenario, we're now in a situation where our business right now is getting towards that sort of like £500,000 turnover mark, but we are blinkered in terms of we're doing 50% of our work in Saudi and the Middle East.
Yeah.
We're doing 50% of it in the UK. We're doing lots across technical roles in sport, football, rugby, cricket. And it's like, I can't just go back to being so blinkered, but how do you propose we rein that in? Is that building a team and giving them specifics? Do you sort of see what I mean?
Yeah, I do, mate. And it's hard, isn't it? Because it's one of those where it's that balance of, well, we don't want to give away the revenue. Do you know what I mean? So when you say no to stuff, you're like, well, I think we could fill it, but also it's going to take you away from the core of what you do, which is always a worry. Depending on budget, I would say the first thing I would do if I was you is map out your market and almost to the stage where you know how many desks could be in that market. If you haven't done that already, mate, you remember from back in the day, you know, the grid and gridding desks and stuff like that from back in the day. But gridding your business and understanding how many desks sit in that business can help you at least understand what structured organic growth looks like. But it's not as simple as just chucking a load of consultants in, plus it's hard to find them, isn't it, mate? From a rein-in point of view, and I know you're quite hot on this anyway, I just think you've got to up your bar on what you work. From that, because what I would hate is that you start wasting time on stuff that doesn't come off. And I know your bar's pretty high anyway. And I know you're like, well, if they don't work our way, then we don't work it. And if there's anything that you stepped away from that, then heaven forbid, because your bar's always been high and I wouldn't move it even though the market's expanding. So I'd keep your bar as high as you can, if not make it higher. And arguably your fees as well. Because you're clearly good at what you do. But yeah, I actually think that trying to bite off too much you might end up, if you're not careful, in 12 months' time, being all over the place and not having any business plan. And that's really dangerous, isn't it, mate? That's the challenge. So ideally you would recruit, because I know how many people you've got, and there's definitely space for you to do that. And you'd be absolutely focused in what each person would do before you recruit. But mate, it's a brilliant opportunity, but it's also really tough to not get watered down and end up running around working jobs all over the place.
No, thank you.
Do you know how big your market is, Harry?
Not particularly, Simon, just given that it's so vast, I suppose. Traditionally, we're Birmingham based. We started as a result of a couple of the guys in our leadership team having worked at Premier League clubs, and it started within boardroom appointments within football. But then a football client becomes a rugby client, becomes a cricket client, becomes a technical role, and all the things that fall within it, I suppose.
Yeah. It just tells me there's a ton of opportunity. It's exciting.
Yeah, it's cool. It is good. Right. Any more questions for Stu? Come on, be brave. Or don't be brave. Just if you've liked today, give him some feedback. I loved what you did. I've got a couple of people.
I think what you were talking about with regard to the scoring your jobs and sort of just triaging projects that you've got on and going, right, have I got what I need? Have they helped me be able to be an effective deliverer of what they need? So just the recent anecdote, I'm working on a job with someone else through the team network, and we had the great situation where we had myself and my colleague from team, but then also we had 2 or 3 decision makers from the end business on the call, so we could kind of pick through all of the challenges that they had up until this point, trying to fill this vacancy, what they tried to do in the project previously. Then we mapped out, well, look, tell us who the best companies are to target, so we're not going to come to you with useless or irrelevant candidates. Also, because it had been open for about 3 months, we also said, please can you tell us who the names are of the people that you've already had, because we don't want to waste their time. We don't want to annoy them by reminding them about you as a business because they were unsuccessful. But also, and they also gave us a bit of a blurb about why they were irrelevant, and they sort of really honed in on, what's the first thing you ask them in an interview? We ask them about X skill. So if they haven't got X skill, don't waste our time. I'm like, that's brilliant. And then now they're chasing us up for candidates. But it's like, well, this is what we're doing. This is what we've done so far. This is the feedback we've got around salary. And it was like, they really helped us to be able to help them. And that was that was a really good example of something good that's happened. All too often, the other end of the spectrum, as you say, you sometimes get a job spec, or you don't get enough information about the candidate or the job or whatever, but it's always useful to have it.
I just think that to this day, I mean, I have no doubt that when I get bored of traveling around the country, I'll end up being a recruiter. And I will always have a job order form. I'm passionate about them, and recruiters very rarely have them. But all the things you said are easy things to not ask, or they're things that you forget to ask. And I'm just like, I want a best practice. This is everything I ask on every job. Yeah. Every stone is unturned. They can choose not to answer if they want, which is a flag. Yeah. But this is everything that I ask, and this is the bar that I have, and I'm going to need 30 minutes to do that. And if I can't do that, then I can't help.
I think the difficulty sometimes is these guys are kind of in extremis, or they're in a stress scenario where they've been trying to fill this job for a while. They've tried a few bits and bobs and it hasn't worked out. And some of the agencies or whatever they've engaged with in the past are focused on the wrong element of the job. Whereas we went back to like, right, explain it to me like I'm an idiot. Explain it to me very simply.
Don't assume.
And then almost like, what's the emphasis? Or if someone had got this, would you prefer that? What's the easiest thing for you to train them on? Or we can train them on the estimating software. Terrific. So if they came from this background, would you prefer that? Yes, we would. Okay, well, that's great. Because then at least you've got something to work with. But as I said, sometimes the other end of the spectrum is, as I said, you don't have those intake notes. You don't have the direct line to the person. You don't have the follow-up. So, there's another team job I've got, which is, it's not, I don't have to do the portal stuff, but it's for a partner, but they're dealing with the portal. But there's been clear communication when the interviews have been arranged. And I've got an interview arranged for this other vacancy, by the way, but I've just been copied in on the stuff. But the contacts aren't, but at least I know that my recruiting partner via team, they're responsive with me and they're chasing the client.
That's fair.
Again, it's like it takes horses for courses, but I think you've just got to try and. But I think where the confidence comes in, which is a word that you kept on returning to, I think it's having the confidence based on the context of your current market circumstance or how well business is going for you as a business owner to push back with the client. Because obviously sometimes business has been a bit lean. You're grateful for any job, so you almost like take the scraps and you don't want to push back. But it's
how important is that? Yeah, I agree, but
it's like anything. If we can frame it for everybody as to what's in it for them as the client on this project, if we do this, if we spend more time at the top of things or at the start of the process, that's why it'll save fewer duds later in the, with regard to
agree.
candidates or interviews that are arranged that don't go anywhere. But it's having the confidence to communicate that or articulate that with the clients. And again, that a lot of that is going to be down to your headspace at that point in time. If you're smashing it and everything you put in front of the client at the moment is getting an interview, you feel untouchable. You think everything's brilliant. Whereas if you're having a bit of a rocky time and everything you touch turns to dust, you've still got to have that kind of confidence to push back and ask, or as I said, articulate why the clients need to do that.
Yeah, it's communication for me, and you're right. Sometimes a job isn't. I think recruitment's about lining up a job, in my opinion, and sometimes a job isn't. You're not particularly able to line it up beautifully. Then for me, it becomes feedback.
Yeah,
it becomes detailed feedback. Like I'm a stickler for every single time a job's taken on that I think in 4 days' time a pre-booked meeting should already be in the diary to talk about the search and to talk about candidates. Like I need feedback, because actually it's the feedback that usually ends up helping fill the job, really, like you said. And really what you were doing is using someone else's feedback in a previous process to help you now with a match. So if we can't line it up, then please try and get detailed feedback. Don't take feedback on email like a one-liner. Like, come on, it just kills you. So so it can be really, really important. Otherwise, you can just spend so much time wasted.
I guess as well, going back to what you were talking about with principles and confidence and what you're trying to do, I suppose if we can always aim to get absolutely everything filled out and get 100% of the stuff all of the time,
that's the dream.
That's great. Whereas I think it's almost like it's having the rigor and the discipline to ask for it every time. Because if we don't get it, then at least I've got 80% of it, so I can probably do a solid job. If it gets down to below a certain amount and I still feel like I'm going back and asking lots of questions, I think that's where you've got to go, this isn't going to be easy to fill for these reasons. A, because they're not engaged, or B, because they've not come back to you and given you the
and I don't think the scoring, like I know I say it's like it's a solution. It's not like a bullet, but I think it starts holding you accountable to what you're asking, like you've said, and trying to hold the relationship accountable. And then, yes, ideally there would be a line where you're like, well, it scores below this, so I probably shouldn't bother. But I'm also conscious that scoring doesn't replace gut feel. And sometimes you just like the hiring manager, and sometimes you just fancy the job. But at least still ask the questions, is all I really ask.
Or you might get to that point through the growing pains with the client of going, we should have done it how you were asking for it. Because
that's how it works.
We've only given you these scraps of information, and you've come to us with completely ill-matched candidates. Well, that's right, because I'm not a genius, I'm not a mind reader. I'm just a person doing what I do. I'm tenacious and I'm hardworking. However, now we've gone through these growing pains. If you give me this in the first one, okay, and then eventually you get there. But
I agree, and the confidence to say no is quite big. Like the confidence when you're taking a candidate to market and the hiring manager says, "Can you send me a CV?" and I sit next to people and say, "No, you can't. You're not allowed." Like so that's huge. Like saying no is really big, and I understand that's hard.
I think it's
gutsy, but I watch it work, so I know it works. But you've got to have a really good reason not to. So
I suppose, I guess on that thing, I would feel more confident doing that with a client I've known for a while rather than someone I know straight out of the gate. I'll be honest.
But it's plausible, I promise. It's plausible, I promise.
I'm not disagreeing with you. What I'm saying is I think if I'd dealt with a load of rival firms in the exact same market space and I'd filled those jobs recently and I had the confidence and the context of that, I'd probably feel more. Because ultimately, if you don't ask, you don't get anywhere, I suppose.
And I think that's where I can, from a coach point of view, when I sit next to somebody, even somebody who's only been, I was doing it this week with somebody who's only been in recruitment for 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm lining up how we're going to do that call. And I'm saying they're going to ask for the CV. So be ready for it. And I want you to say no. Like the reason I can't send you the CV is because it's confidential, is because of this. So if you can do this for me, then I'm happy to go and do that for you. I watch it work. But God, you've got to be ready and you've got to be well trained to do it, because otherwise you just sound like you're sassy. So
if you're getting someone who's only been in the industry for 2 months, they haven't got any bad habits that they've picked up.
I'd argue it's easier.
Preconceived ideas. So I think in that sense, then it's probably easier to
blind confidence.
They don't know any better. They've not had the bad
experience
when they've tried it. But no, I think again, if you have a moonshot, you try for it every time, but don't always get it. But at least you've asked the question.
What's the harm in asking? I agree. Completely agree.
Great stuff. No, thanks, Stuart. Good stuff.
Pleasure. Simon even got bored and left. That's harsh. That's savage. Cindy, you just sacked me off. What's going on here? Simon gone for lunch and just not told the rest of us. How rude.
No.
It's my lunchtime as well, Simon.
He's gone from the sheet, so I don't know. I'm still here. I think what you're saying is brilliant, and like you say, confidence is the most important thing. To stick by your guns. That's the key.
Well, that's really where I make a living. Really, I'm lucky enough that my job's kind of cool. My job is to help people become confident. Then they tend to make a bit more revenue. It's that simple, really. Yeah. So
exactly, and once they see that, then they're not going to stir away from that. It is having that confidence and just someone to push you down the right road sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. Cool.
Yeah. Well, I think it was brilliant.
Sorry that took so long, everybody. Sorry.
Thank you so much. Speak to you soon.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Stu.